Hello and welcome to another episode of my Not Your Average Bible Studies. Today is Sunday, June 1st, 2025, and thank you for being here with me and listening. We are going to be picking up where we left off, of course. Where else would we begin? Chapter 14 of Matthew, I think I read up until verse 23, and of course we'll pick up where I left off. But before we do, I'd like to just say thank you so much for watching this video. If you are new, thanks for joining. If you're not new, thank you duly for committing and returning. This Sacred Sunday part of my routine is such a blessing and honor to take part in and to commit to come back to, and to go through, So thanks for being here. Thanks for coming along the ride. Whether it's your first time or, you're a long-time listener, I really appreciate your energy and audience. Like I said, we left off at verse 23, and I think I may just pick it back up right where we left it off with verse 24, since it shifts in sort of the time setting and what's happening in the story of chapter 14. And so I don't get too much tied back into kind of the socioeconomical and all that kind of stuff. Could probably talk about that too much again for too long. So, and yet this happenings here is really, the scene is something else to me. When I first read this, I thought, wow, what imagery and what lessons are told with this as well. And yes, there's a quite literal interpretations and scenes, like I said, created with the story here that are real life and that are, portrayed in that manner. But there's also, more dimensionality I see and believe to it. A metaphysical truth of all things is that it's made up of this sort of triad. It's not just the physical happenings, but the mental and the spiritual as well, and that all are happening sort of in conjunction. Some are witnessable in the material world. Other things happen and have influence in the material world, but are not witnessable and observable by our eye. They're distinguishable in different ways. And so I think there's other deeper symbology available in this next scene, and the truths within it, and I just really, I appreciate the way it can be told so picturesquely, and dynamically. And so let's let the scripture speak for itself first, Mickey. So pick it up, Matthew 14:24. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking out on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come unto thee onto the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, why for thou didst thou doubt? I love that. And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then that they were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. So I'm probably totally massacred the name. And when the man of that place had no knowledge of him, they sent out into that country round about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment. And as many as touched were made perfectly whole. So I kind of went all the way through the whole end of the chapter there. And there's two scenes, of course, but the first scene in the water with Peter is the scene that I was speaking about before I started reading. And also where I'll pick up first to talk just a bit about. Although I already kind of painted the picture about why I like it so much, first I would say that Jesus has left them to go to the top of the mountain to meditate, to be alone, to do this seclusion after his teachings, right? Because when you look back into the verses beforehand, of course, right? He had done all of this great work. They were in the desert. He had brought forth an abundance of food and a surplus for all to have their needs fulfilled and met, you know. He had healed people and given these great teachings, right? And his sort of last bow on the present is kind of take all of this stuff and go integrate it, everyone. Take it away and go pray, go alone and sit, right? And he went, and it says, and he went up to the mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone, right? And I think this, I talked about this at the end of session 26, how important this phase of our cycles is, and what reflection and integration truly mean, to be able to take in the words, the teaching, information, light, love, integrate it fully into yourself. Make something of it, of you, your own, you know, put your own imprints on it and allow it to put its imprints on you. And much like he said in other passages and at other times and places, you know, go into the dark, go in a closet and shut the door. That's where the work is done. That's where the true alchemy happens, the real integration happens. That's what we go into meditation for. Or one of the reasons, right? But it again, of course, materialistically puts the sort of nail in the coffin to the scene and the plot line of the story that Jesus is not with the disciples at this time, and in fact they've gone out without him. And it also puts a wonderful parable in itself, kind of this scene of, you know, where the discipleship is really at for these guys, and where they're being tested at, right? And Jesus testing them, and also but being a part of the test himself. You know, this is such a mastership in his learning, I think, is his stewardship of the position and the Son of Man designation. It's sort of a variable placeholder that we're all could step into and can, and yes, he's showing us the way and being that A+ student, but he's also so readily accepting and understanding and knowing that the sort of A+ student becomes that best student because they learn from every different angle, and because they sort of see everybody else as they are, you know, and maybe not just A+ as in a grade, I don't mean either. If we think about mind, body, and spirit, all reflections of things happen in this dynamic. I mean, the body, the physical matter of the A+ student has to do with the learning and getting the questions correct, and that kind of notion of being the best student, the best learner, of taking in of information and processing information, thinking cognitively. But there's also, you know, the learner of friendship and of all the different types of people who are involved in the classroom, and the best friend of all, the best classmate, and that one who's sort of friends with all the different groups, right? That can be seen as, if we were to vote the most popular and call the best student as the most popular student, there's a whole different dynamic to that. And I think, Jesus in himself is A+ across all of the varieties, emotional, spiritual, and physical sense. So to want to help all the other kind of students in the class, his disciples, at the level that they're at with the subject that they need help with, and to sort of tutor them and to see where they're at and to see their strengths and weaknesses, and then to live action teach through real world scenarios like that. So amazing. And also it paints a great picture and plays a good role for later to come, because there's time afterwards, like us, where we can almost look at and interpret and read the story as almost a fiction story with characters where we're so removed from the time and place that it's hard for us to get into it and understand how we could really connect with it, when we pull this dynamic of imagination into it and accept that we are not, accepting out other things. We are, in fact, bringing it more to life for us in a more integrated way, so that we can learn the lessons in our own way, more deeply. I think we can get a lot from the stories too, and learn to see them a little bit in different ways. And appreciate them so much, So just to think on this, the disciples are at their own stage, and they're out fishing, they're out, killing time, while Jesus is on the mountain, and the weather's bad, and I could only, try to imagine, put myself in the place of being in the presence of such a great teacher, and someone who could make such impact in such a obvious way, and then to be off without him, first and foremost, and then to face bad weather. It's like, oh, we're on our own. Oh, is it really, do we really have the power within us? Are we connected enough? Are we good enough? And the thing that stuck out to me the first time I really read this, and what I wanted to bring up before this episode's over, I knew I wanted to speak on this kind of, is the way that Peter says if it is you, I'll come to you. Like Jesus holds the power over all these things, and he doesn't. In fact, he's the partnership in the great power of all, and trying to help that best student kind of come into their power and learn the material for themselves and realize they can be an A+ student too. But they're kind of just like, oh, you can do the work for me, kind of, because you know the answers already. And if you're here, I know I'm going to get them right, or I know you're going to help me with them. And he's really trying to cultivate that sovereign will and power within each on their own, right? In each disciple, and to help people unlock to realize that is the true being state within each one of them. And at first he walks out, but then he falls, right? And I just love the reply, "O ye of little faith." And this is the other time. There's a couple other times he said this, and I just get such a humble laugh out of that, because it's so true. And faith, intention, and these frequencies of knowing and we have within us, our truths, they speak so much louder than any words. They speak so much clearer than any action, and they are so much more firm than anything else. And yet they're so intangible. They're so hard to define or pinpoint. But when you know it, you know it. And if you don't, you don't. And if you have to ask, you'll never know. But yeah, it's all about trust and doubt, truth and lies. And again, the one whole and where we reside within it, and what the Son of Man really is, what the Father is, to stand in truth and ownership of that truth in the great whole. Of course, that's my opinion. Many others hear things that are similar in that, and I've heard others very similarly say things like this. But needless to say, I feel, it comes to the end of the chapter, and it sort of is, and of course it's the telltale knowings that society wasn't really completely ready for Jesus' teachings and ready for the integration or anything, but just because they seem to really materialize everything and bring it into this very kind of base level physical self and carnal and materialistic sense of interpretation of everything, and then don't really take it any further either. And so when the storm ceases, they reach the shore, and of course they all worship him, is how the chapter goes on, in his mighty works, of course. And why wouldn't you? But again, this is sort of, I feel, in Jesus's pain, sort of the way that he would feel like, oh man, you guys are getting it the wrong way. That's the kind of feeling I get, at least. And I've heard lots of others speak up on this as well. And I don't mean to belittle the power of him, and I don't also want to attribute too much more to him than should be, because I feel like there's a balance in these things, and we have plenty of people doing extremes on all ends. But again, I mean, all these miracles occur around him and happen because of people's belief in him. That's, again, it's a very complex yet simple truth and knowing, much like the law of one and oneness is. And you don't really get it until you get it. And then once you get it, it becomes almost an inside secret to yourself that it's always developing and that it's changing, and that I thought I get it, but there's this, there's that. And it's this ever-seeking quest. Except when we settle into it, and then when we accept it as true and know it as true, right? Like Jesus is portrayed for us and sort of solidifies in the knowing, and then the step up can be made. It's much like, and I've used this metaphor before in other places, and I think I created some infographics around it, but it's almost in counter to this sort of quote-unquote law of attraction people speak about. There's a lot of things around it. But it's faith, honestly, it's belief. And what it is almost like an invisible ladder. And each rung of the ladder does not appear fully and solidly enough to actually bear your weight on it until you believe it will. And when you grasp around it, as you're grasping it, the next one becomes firmer at this exact same time. And you have to really have that belief in order for the solidity for you to pull yourself up one more rung, and then to fully stand on the one below you. The one below you becomes the new foundational knowings, and it's a firm working. But then you still have the one in front of you that you have a full grasp on, but you don't fully know where it's going to take you yet, because we have to know, we can't look up or down when you're climbing. You have to have this sort of in the flow, know where you're going, because what happens is we have to imagine the place that we're going to, or you have to hold an imagination space, so to speak, the destination of the ladder, and we create it in real time, out in reality space, the goal, the place, the feeling. And you have to have it firmly knowing that my ladder's climbing there, and I see it so firmly, and hold it and then grasp at it. And then it solidifies as you pull yourself up, and it builds as you grow. And if you doubt it, well, you lose it. And then it becomes almost a negative self-fulfilling prophecy, like, oh, I'm just never getting there, oh, it's not real, or oh, I'm not good enough for it yet, because we are thinking that they have to really firmly take shape and formation before we can climb up there, before we can get there. And by the time that would even happen, the moment's already gone stale. It's not in the flow anymore. And this is the thing about like the lemniscat that I talk about with systems and the energy, flux and flow, and that it is all about balance and seeking your highest, happiest, harmonious middle ground at all times in each moment, and treating everyone around you with that same sovereign right to that pursuit and that space and place to do that. And also the recognition that that's the creator, that's God on that pursuit, right? Just like I am God on Allie's pursuit. We are each a finite point of discovery within infinite scope of what God's source is, if all is of his creation, right? Anyways, I've gotten a little bit off of and into a bit of more metaphysical, esoteric than Bible talk, but this is a metaphysical look at the New Testament, of course, and that's my flavor of choice, so to speak. That's my comfortable, fertile ground to kind of bring back my own gnosis from and speak from my own things. So yeah, it tends to go back there. And again, I think it's sort of a roundabout way to also capture almost what people see and saw in Jesus, and why they were able to unlock their perfect healing and their perfect states just by a touch on a garment, or just by his word, or just by an encounter with him sometimes, because that foundation was already built so strongly, and the vision, they were there already, and all they need is this one signature to get them there. Then it's given. And he was so wise and understanding that people needed to have the foundational belief in order for any healings to take place in the first place. He explains this in many different facets and from different angles of observation, and different dis-ease and imbalances that he helps others and works through others with. So yeah, I think he saw the perfection underneath. He saw the God-given purpose within each person, I think, and really through the Father's eyes. You see a child through their mother's eyes. They kind of have that saying. It's like, I feel it's an unconditional love of that, like the perfection that each mother sees in the newborn infant's face, and all the potential and all the greatness and all that could be's. That really, seeing that and knowing that within each, helped unlock that and bring it to fruition right in present moment for them. And because I think organic template is an original underneath template as well, and it is just a means of us bringing it through and enlivening it, remembering it. But of course, when we're in need of, and we are so graciously given a wonderful, blessed example, I am very thankful for that, be it whatever type of example we want to take it as, literal, figurative, subjective, objective, across all means and ideas of contemplation. I will juggle myself, and feel free to, as anyone listening. I hope that we can have the freedom in thinking of this and honoring each one, because I think it doesn't take away from anybody else's more stricter perspective or belief of him or the teachings. I think it infuses it, and it creates better appreciation, more depth to the appreciations, in my opinion. Anyway, so I guess that's that. I'll leave it there. I've gone a little, into my time range of where I like these 20 to 30 minutes or so, and we're done with the chapter anyways. It was a quick one today. Thanks for listening. I hope you'll join me next Sunday. We'll pick it up in chapter 15 and see where it takes us. Thank you for your audience and your attention. Thank you for your beautiful contribution to our collective as well. Thank you for witnessing mine. and I hope you will tune in next time.